Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Alright my friends, well hello and welcome to another weekly reading wrap-up. We have 13 books to talk about today, and I know that I'm going to have some gushing to share, so we're just going to dive right into it because I read some awesome books in this last week, some upcoming releases, some recent releases, and as well as binging a new to me mafia series that I just absolutely loved. So I know you guys are going to be excited to hear about that. First off, I do have a new patron to welcome, and this person wants to remain anonymous, so they're just anonymous reader. So anonymous reader, whoever you are, thank you so much for supporting my channel. It means so much to me. If you're interested in supporting the Book Refuge, I do have a Patreon. I have channel memberships. There's lots of benefits you can get, so check those out down below. But if you aren't able to do any of those things, just liking this video and leaving a comment definitely helps me get seen. And then you've done your part to make sure the lights stay on, right? Okay, let's get into it. First, I still have 2 books from October to talk about, and then all the rest of these will be November reads, because I did already put up my October wrap-up, so you can check that out. And one of those books that was in my favorites of October was one of the very last books that I read, which was Hoarded by the Dragon, which actually just came out this week. I was actually surprised with this arc. Lillian Lark, I guess, was really watching, like, who was commenting on her posts because she reached out and asked if I wanted an arc of this book after I, like, commented on one of hers. And I was so excited. I've loved everything I've read by Lillian Lark. Most of it is monster romance, but there was one of hers that is a novella that's like a FBI and stalker romance that I really enjoyed. So I like that one as well. But Hoarded by the Dragon is a fated mates romance. It also starts out as our heroine, Katerina, breaks into this dragon's home. She's there to steal something for a friend. She's a witch who is able to get through, like, wards easier, like she can see them and is able to navigate them, and so she's been a thief for many years off and on. But she isn't, like, currently thieving, but she agrees to take this job for a friend, basically, you know. And she breaks into the wrong dragon's home, or it might be the right one. We'll see what happens. But it happens that this dragon, I think we say his name Kolos. Let me see, I wrote it down here. His name is Kalos, I think is how we say it. I have all my notes down there. And he is in the middle of a heat. And those are very painful and difficult for him because he doesn't have a mate anymore. His mate died many years ago. And so when he has his heats, there's no one for him to ease them with. He just has to suffer through them. But strangely, our heroine, when he catches her, she starts becoming aroused by him because she's feeling his heat. And she's feeling attracted to him and sees that he is, you know, going through something right now. She's part of the supernatural world, you know, so she's aware of what, like, heats are and everything, but doesn't quite realize how significant it is that a dragon, you know, there's very few dragons. So she makes a deal with him and offers to be his vessel for the night, if he will then let her keep the thing she's there to steal. So making a trade. And he's like, okay, whatever. So they have basically some, I mean, on his part, it's basically some, like, hate sex with her, but it is easing his heat. He does have 2 dicks. He does have a knot in one of them. So it's a very interesting night for her, for sure. And then the next day, you know, she leaves. He's like, I don't want to see you again. If I see you again, I'll have you arrested, all this stuff. So thank you, ma'am. Get out of here. However, the next day, one of her friends, who is also a witch, says, you're pregnant. And she's like, well, number one, I haven't had sex except last night. And aren't dragons only able to conceive with their mate? And this guy said he, you know, wouldn't have a mate because, you know, he'd already had one before. Well, he hasn't told her that yet, but, like, we know that. So she's like, okay, well, I want to keep the baby. She's always wanted to be a parent. And she's like, I'll tell him about it, but it's the day after, so let's just wait a little bit. So that's what she's going to do. She's going to tell him, but she's going to wait just a little bit, which honestly, if you found out you were pregnant the next day from something, I can understand that, you know? So she's going to wait. However, within a week, she is very sick. And so this book, what I thought was very interesting and something I loved is that pregnancy symptoms and like things are really explored in this book at a very like exaggerated element, since it is a supernatural pregnancy, and I appreciated seeing that, you know. But one of the things this baby is doing to her is because it is a reptile, it's actually leaching all the heat from her. So she's waited a week, and now she has to go see Kalos to see if he knows how to help her, because she's like, if I'm free, eventually the baby is not going to get what it needs. So she goes to tell him, and he is shocked. He's, of course, very angry to start with, and also very confused, because he's like, my mate died. You're definitely not my mate. There's no way. And, you know, I'm not supposed to be able to get anyone else pregnant, but he can feel the baby there. And he's like, okay, it must be a fluke, right? Now, we won't get into his whole history, but he definitely is denying what is right in front of his face type of thing. But as we get to know him, we definitely understand why. The things with his first mate, the way that she died, and also how they lost their child. They had a baby at this time. It's understandable why he would never want to put himself in that position again. But anyway, so then for the rest of this book, which if you read the author's note at the end, Lillian meant this to be another like novella in the series, because she just did a full-length one. So usually she does full-length novella and like switches back and forth, but it ended up being a full one, because now the situation is that she needs his like dragon heat and his warmth to like charge her up basically and give the baby what it needs. So she is moved in with him. They are staying together, and they're going to be together until the baby's born, and probably after that. And Kalos, he does offer, you know, sexual easement for her, but she, you know, once he says like, we can be partners in this, we'll be amicable, but I can't love you, you're not my mate, it's not going to work. So when he offers, you know, sexual favors to her to begin with, she's like, I don't want that. Like, I know my body wants it, but if you're not ever going to love me, then this is empty. And so I was very proud of her for saying that. But of course, that won't last forever. But I highly recommend this as a like monster romance. This was like, I was very moved by this story. I teared up multiple times. As we get deeper, you know, as they're around each other more and more of their pasts come out, it's really beautiful to see. Oh my gosh, we cannot talk this long about each one, because my voice isn't going to hold up, and this is going to be a long one. But anyway, all right, so I gave that one 5 stars. It was a 4 on the spice scale, because again, he has 2 cocks. There's some spanking, there's some dominating, there's breeding, kink obviously, and there's some cum play as well, so be prepared. And then the trigger warnings are, there is a discussion of his loss of his wife and child and how they died, so be prepared for that. All right, next I read an arc of Risk the Fall by Riley Hart. This one is coming out this upcoming week, which I'm excited about for everyone. I hadn't read much by Riley Hart. I was looking through the backlist to see if I had. I think I've read one other by them, and it was a MMM menage. But this one is a MM romance, and it involves an ex-con and the ex-best friend of the ex-con, his ex-best friend's brother. So our ex-con, his name is Riven, and he went to prison for something that his ex-best friend did. He went to prison for manslaughter, or whatever it was, and he was forced to take the fall. So now he's out. He's a ex-con. He's on, well, he still is a con. He's on parole, and he ends up getting a job on a like construction job, or landscaping, and the foreman is Parrish, who again is his ex-best friend's younger brother. And it's funny in one way, because Parrish first started realizing he was attracted to men through his brother's best friend. So he's always kind of had a crush on him, but now he sees him as like, you know, he murdered someone. and he was caught up in all the bad stuff my brother did, you know, all these thoughts that he has, because he doesn't know, I mean, nobody knows that Riven took the fall for his brother. And he was forced to do it, type of thing. So, yeah. So, first off, these two have a very antagonistic relationship until, you know, different pieces of information start coming out. And it becomes clear who the real villains are in this. And, you know, I won't lay it all out for you. But part of the reason to Riven kept a secret is he is with his grandmother. His grandmother is who he moves into her, like, apartment above the garage when he comes back, and his grandmother, he would do anything for her. So he's willing to keep his mouth shut if him and his grandma are left alone. That's kind of how it is. So yeah, this was a relationship between them. This was enemies to lovers, romance, and yeah, it was really beautiful between the two of them. Where things were a little bit weird for me was actually some of the sex scenes. Now, I don't mind sex scenes at all, you know, I'm here for it. But some of the kinkiness in this one, I've read other of Riley Hart, you know, I've read one, so I know that they write some kinky stuff. But this just didn't feel like a kinky book. And again, it's not like overly kinky, but some of the words used felt like they belonged in an erotica and not in what I was reading. And it's not even that this one was an over-sexual book. I don't feel like that was it. I just didn't like some of the words that were used, and I started getting the ick, and I didn't like that. So one of my trigger warnings is actually that, so there was a lot of like cum play in this one. There was like kind of a, you know, obsession with the fluids, whatever. And there was these two words that were used when one of the heroes would, you know, be touching it. The words used to describe that was cummy fingers. He lifted the cummy fingers up to his mouth to like lick it off. And it was used multiple times. So I know that's a weird thing, but you know how it is? There's just some icks that then you just are like, it just like throws you out of the story, and that's what happened with this. So I'm just telling you, I enjoyed the story for what it was, but then some of the sex scenes had stuff like that in it where I was just like, this is unnecessary. It's unnecessary. Anyway, so this was an arc. I gave it 4 stars. It's a 3 on the spice scale. But yeah, my literally, I mean, there's also content warning for abusive parents, and there's some death and scary stuff in here. But honestly, the trigger warning for me was like the words that were used to describe the release in this one was rough. Okay, then I read Bazar the Spare by Minerva Spencer, aka SM La Violette. This is a new series being started by her because Minerva Spencer has to have 4 series going at once, you know. Good for her, good for her. This one is the first in the Hale saga, Americans in London. Now, this one takes a bit to set up, but I'll go as quick as I can here to get to it. So, Balthazar is the oldest of his siblings, or so he thinks. They've lived in a commune in America for many years. And they discover when their grandfather dies, so they didn't know their grandfather, but they discover that their father had a child before he like moved to America and, you know, had children again. They have an older brother who's the heir. And when he discovers that he has these siblings, he goes to America and finds them and brings them home because he has oodles of money. And Balthazar, even being the spare, has a huge inheritance that's going to be left to him. So if he gets married within 2 years and the person that he marries is acceptable to his oldest brother, he will be given 4 million pounds. Which would be enough to make sure that his siblings and him could do whatever they wanted for the rest of their lives. Because his siblings are all very, like, learned and quirky, and they each have their thing. One of them likes to build things. Balthazar himself is an inventor. One of his siblings is an artist. And they've all been able to, like, flourish in these crafts and things when they were in this commune. Because they were able to do whatever they wanted there, really. And so to like be brought to London and have to like fit into certain boxes and do certain things is very like going to be very difficult for them. So that's our hero. And that is all backstory we find out as we go. The older brother is engaged in the beginning of this. His name is Zeus. Yes, all of these are named after like, is it Greek or Roman? Who knows? But there is, Balthazar has a twin sister, Io. And then there's also like an Ares and I don't even know the rest of the names, but yeah, so they're all gonna have interesting names like this. But Zeus, he is, you know, very, like, you know, he was raised in London. Like, there's reasons why he wasn't with, like, his mother had died, and the father left his heir, his son, with his in-laws, and then he, like, his brother-in-law or whatever, like, aunts and uncles is who Zeus was raised by. So when he finds out about this, though, he wants to bring his brothers and sisters in, and I really commend him for that. I really liked the growth we're seeing in Zeus in just this book too. You know, he's very overwhelmed by all these family members he now has and all their quirkiness, and trying to keep them from being shamed by the ton and everything. So it's very interesting. Anyway, that's the hero setup. Our heroine in this book, her name is Victoria Dryden, and she is the housekeeper for the house that the grandfather lived in. So now he's dead. She's the housekeeper, has run his house for 14 years. She's a single mother. Her son is away at school. The thing is, she's not actually a widow. She was an unwed mother who was cast aside by her lover, and she actually did some time in jail because of her lover and some things. And yeah, so she has many secrets that she's hiding, but she's been fine. She got this position through some, you know, through some maneuvering, and she's been this housekeeper for all these years. And now that the grandfather's dead, all of the family members are coming to stay at this house. And then Balthazar, he immediately kind of catches her eye. So she is an older woman to him. This is confusing because at first we think she's 10 years older than him. She's actually only 5 years older than him, but I won't explain how that is. We'll just leave it. But Balthazar is 25 and she's 30. So she's an older woman as well. And Balthazar is a very confident, like, kind. He is the sunshine in this. She's definitely the grumpy, like, cautious one, because she's only been hurt by men before, and also getting involved with her employer. You know, her employer's brother would not be good as well. But he's just really drawn to her, and he wants to be with her. And what was beautiful about this, and again, Minerva Spencer calls this out in the end, is that Balthazar is the well-adjusted, happy one. He grew up in a commune, but he was loved. Nothing about him was shamed. He doesn't carry any, like, guilt or shame, and isn't, like, reserved the way other people are, because everything about him was just accepted where he lives. So now he's here and he wants this woman, and he's like, why can't we just be together? Because in the commune you could just sexually be with whoever you wanted. They used condoms, they were safe, and you also, like, you know, communally raised your kids. So it was those kind of things. You find out more about it in here, but he doesn't understand why they can't just be together. And she's like, because I would be ruined if we do that. And also Balthazar doesn't really believe in marriage at the beginning of this, because nobody was married in the commune, because everybody belonged to everyone, right? Okay. So anyway, that's kind of the setup of this. It definitely is a opposites attract scenario, but I really did like that, like, Balthazar tells no lies. He isn't hiding anything. He's really just trying to win over this woman who has been hurt before, who, you know, is in a precarious position. She could lose it all. And on top of that, there is someone blackmailing her who knows about her son and where he comes from. And it's putting her in a bad position with that as well. So I liked this a good amount. It was a very slow burn. This was one of the slower burns I've read from Minerva Spencer. When we did get to sex, it was very good, because, again, Balthazar knows a lot of things and he wants to, you know, teach her in any way that he can. She's only ever had uncomfortable situations. The sex that produced her child was not good, you know. She was also a teenager when it happened. And so, yeah, I enjoyed this. It did get a bit frustrating with how much she ran from him. In my opinion, Balthazar is practically a saint, but, you know, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it. But it was, just comparing to other ones I love by her, like, she does do stuff like that sometimes. So I gave this one 4 stars. It was, I have it as a 3 on the spice scale, mostly because of, like, the kind of sex that we were having for this being a historical, but it's probably more like a 2.5 or so. But yeah, I was so happy to read this, and now I have another series of her that I'm just patiently waiting for books to come out. All right, then we have a couple fan fictions. So this first one I won't say too much about. It's pretty short. This one is, hold on, I wrote down how many words that it is this time. There we go. This one is 48,000 words. It's called Overture by Dirty Mudblood. I will have the link to this down below so you can see it. This is inspired by not only a Hermione fic, but Phantom of the Opera. So Hermione is working for the Ministry of Magic, and there is someone who's sending her hints and letters and different clues about how she can solve a problem she's having at work. And at first she ignores these because she's like, who the hell is sending me these? You know, she's very logical. But then one day she just kind of tries one of the things they suggest, and it works. And so now she's like, well, what does this person know? So the issue that it is, I'll just set that up, is so Wolfsbane is being produced by these different apothecaries, and they are subsidized by the government to give this out to people, because there was a lot of people during the war who were bitten by werewolves, right? And so there's all these innocent people who, you know, will turn violent during the full moon if they don't have this potion. And also, not everybody has the facilities or the capability to be able to lock them up during the full moon. So, you know, there's a possibility that werewolf, it could spread if they don't have this, and that would be horrible. So the government is going to be ceasing their funding for this, because it is very expensive to make, but like, what are people supposed to do? And guys, the way I tell you how much, as someone who needs to take medicines and are ridiculously expensive, and also now because I'm over 30, my like cheaper insurance is over, like that just happened to me. My insurance is going to double at the first of the year. So the way that this fanfic like spoke to something real in my life, I can't even tell you. I can't even tell you. So anyway, the way that Draco comes into this, he actually owns many apothecaries, and he's become kind of like a potions master for making medicines and things. And he like owns his own like laboratories for this. And so he's one of the owners that Hermione approaches to discuss, you know, solutions possibly for this. And Draco is very willing to help with this. And so through working with him, she is also receiving letters still from her phantom. She is starting to fall for Draco at the same time. And so she's very confused by that. Of course, you know, we know they're probably the same person because that's the situation we're in. But he does it that way because he doesn't think she would accept his advice otherwise. And I mean, he's right. That's the thing. He's definitely right. So this one was a pretty quick read. You know, 48,000 words isn't too long. This one, I will warn you. I'll warn you because that's what I'm here to do. This one is listed as an explicit fic, and it has one scene on the last like 5 pages of the book. So just putting that out there. I know. I still want there to be steam in books, guys. You know, I don't want that to get lost in the discussions I have about wanting steam to be good. I still want it to exist. I still like there to be spicy stuff in books. I'm just tired of it not fitting the story, right? I still want my good stuff. So in this one, when it's rated explicit, and then there's only one scene with that happening, I'm just like, why didn't they just rate this as mature? But it has to do with the words that are used. Like, they did use the more naughty words for it, but it was literally one scene at the end. So I'm just warning you, this one was a slow burn. It was a good story still, but I did feel kind of cock-blocked in this one, and then everything happened in it, and they didn't even give us like a little bit of like after what's going on, and I just don't like that. But that's just how I am about any stories, whether they are fanfic or not. So I gave this one 3.5 stars, and it is like a 1.5 on the spice scale. We'll give that. All right. Then we went way crazy, and I read You Never Can Trust Paperwork by Perpetual Fangirl. This one was 86,000 words, and this one was a, this one was a reverse harem, but it is an arranged marriage still. So Hermione has been trying to stop the marriage law, but she isn't able to. And, oh my gosh, are you going to do what you're supposed to do? Okay, whatever. This isn't working. And instead of being paired with one person, she gets paired with 4 because there's a mix-up. So she gets put into an arranged marriage with Theo, Draco, Sirius, and Remus. Okay, so she's put into marriage with this. There are other stipulations on the marriage that she must end the day in bed with one of them. They don't have to be fucking, but she must end the day in bed with one of them every night. And she must be in the presence of all of them within every 8-hour period, so they can't even like go away from each other. And they must consummate their marriage within a certain amount of time, and then you're supposed to try to have a kid in the first like 3 years or whatever. So all marriage laws in fic, like, they have rules like this, but it's a pretty intense rule. And one of the like conflicts, you know, there's not a ton of conflicts in this one. This one is an erotic fic for the most part because there's a lot of sex scenes in this one. This one does have MMF and MM stuff in this one, so it's the kind that I do like. And, you know, all of these characters really come to love each other, which I love. They actually work on their individual relationships. They talk about the fact that they want to spend some alone time with each other at different times, and not just Hermione with them, like them with each other. Love that. But anyway, one of the issues with this is that during the full moon, Lupin turns. I mean, he does have Wolfsbane potion, but he still like is afraid of hurting her. But like, she has to be around him every 8 hours or they are both in extreme pain. So they have to find a way to deal with that. And one of the ways to do it is that in this world, like, a werewolf can make a pack. They can have a mate and they can make a pack. And the people in their pack, if they bite them during sex, it will like make them all a part of this pack. And then he won't hurt them when he's turned. That's the stuff that gets brought up. So there are a lot of like really hot scenes where we had to have Lupin like bite each person during a sex scene, which was great. So anyway, this one is mostly smutty, but it did still have some heart to it. So I gave this one 4 stars, but it definitely was a 5 on the spice scale. There's a bit of like bossy BDSM stuff, but not too much. Okay, next up. Now I started binging a series, and I read all 3 of these books it was probably within 2 days because I didn't read anything else. So a book that was on my TBR was When She Unravels by Gabrielle Sands. This was recommended last December, and it was on my 12 Recs for 12 Friends list. And I still have 4 of those books left, and I don't know if we'll get to all of them, but I wanted to get to this one because, yeah, it was on this list, as well as my friend Shauna has read these recently, and she was talking them up, and I was like, okay. So I just started this one just to see, and I was immediately sucked in, and then I read all 3 of these. And the 4th one comes out in December, so I'm excited for that. So When She Unravels is about Valentina, and at the beginning of this book, she's currently in a forced marriage that her father forced her to be in. She's his oldest daughter, and she was married off to one of his enforcers to reward him. So, yep, she was married off to him. This enforcer is a psychopath. He is evil, okay? He's evil. There's no other way to say it. And he forces her to torture some of his victims. So they are people who've offended the mob. So he isn't picking random people. He's picking people he's allowed to kill, basically. And besides consummating their marriage, he's never like fucked her again. So, I mean, at least there's that, I guess. But he does get sexual pleasure watching her torture these people. So he will get off while she is torturing these people. So thankfully, we don't have to see that immediately. We just are told what she has had to do in the last couple months she's been married to him. And she's just a shell of a person. Her family, her parents kind of know, and they're ignoring it. They're like, he's your husband, do whatever he says. Even though he threatens her family when he's like, if you don't do this, I'm going to kill your sister. If you don't do this, I'm going to do this. And she believes him because he's crazy. So then one day he comes home with a woman, a young woman. She looks to be an older teenager or so. And he's going to make her torture this girl. And this is the line. This is the line for Valentina. There's nothing he can threaten her with that will make her do this. So this girl she is like, please help me. And she's like, I can't help you. And then the girl's like, you can't even try? And she's like, you know what? I can. And so these two break out. She shoots her husband, doesn't know if he's dead or not. Wish she would have double tapped that MO, but whatever. That MF, there we go. But she escapes, they take some money, she buys the girl a plane ticket so she can get back to her family, and then she herself gets a ticket and flies off. She ends up in Ibiza, and when she gets there, she gets robbed because she isn't very smart, and now she needs to find a job. So she's on the run. She doesn't think her family will be able to find her there, but she needs to get a job. So she goes to this nightclub and is trying to get a job there doing something. You know, she's never been allowed to do anything, so it's not like she has a lot of skills. But the owner of this club, his name is Damiano, and she makes a plea with him to just give her a week's trial. And he doesn't want to, number one, because he's attracted to her, and he's like, I don't want to be attracted to my staff. That wouldn't be good. But she's very insistent. She's like, just give me a chance. I need this. So he does. So during the time that she's working for him, he is trying to make her leave. Like, he's trying to get her to leave at the end of the week. So he does kind of haze her a little bit. But, like, this woman has survived literal hell. So him being a bit of a mean boss isn't going to be enough to get it. And he becomes very attracted to her and how feisty she is and how, like, much she fights back. And it really is cool to see her, like, from the shell-shocked, like, terrified woman in the beginning to watch her, like, get her fire back. It feels good to see that, right? But of course she's hiding a secret, and of course that's gonna come out. And there was a big reveal about halfway through that I won't say what the reveal is, but it does lead to him finding out who she is. The daughter of a mob boss in New York. So he's not going to take that well. So we'll just leave it at that. But I loved this book. I really, really did. I loved the back and forth between them. I loved the, like, what felt like such an honest, slow burn of their or build of their, it isn't a horrible slow burn, but I mean the buildup of their relationship, and then how it changes when this comes out and how we deal with that, and then what the ramifications are for the rest of the series. So I'll be a little more vague now as I talk about the next two, because it directly, you know, things have directly changed because of this first book, and I don't want to ruin that. But this one, I gave this 5 stars because I had a great time. You guys know. Of course, this isn't perfect. Of course, it isn't the best mafia you've ever seen, but I liked it. I like that it took place in Ibiza. I've only read, like, one other book that takes place there, you know, the Adelaide Forest one. And I also suggest, like, if you like Kings of Italy, I think you'll like this series. I do, especially some of the later books, the next books that I'm going to talk about. So that's my, like, pitch for that is if you love Kings of Italy, I think you should give this a try. The next book was When She Tempts. And so this one is a type of bodyguard romance, kinda, and also has a bit of vibes of Captor Captive at the same time. But this one is about Martina and Giorgio. And Martina is the daughter of a mafia guy, or not a daughter, the sister of. And now they're in, you know, because of some stuff in the beginning, there is some now, like, war that's breaking out. And so what's cool too is through the 3 books that I've read so far, there is kind of a through line of a plot of, like, trying to overthrow a certain mafia boss. So we see that build up through it, but things have heated up after the first one. So this girl, to prevent her from being used as leverage, because she's one of the only things that this guy cares about, she needs to be kept safe. So one of the allies of our mob boss, Giorgio, he has this home where no one knows where it is. It just has 3 staff members, and it's his home that is his, like, safe place. It also carries a lot of bad memories of things that happen there, but that is his kind of safe place. So he takes the girl here, and she's very resistant to being there, but she's also kind of mentally unwell. There is some depression and, like, anxiety that she's having, and through living here with Giorgio, and him, like, he takes her phone away for a while because her phone is making her anxious with what she sees. He starts teaching her self-defense. Through her finding things to do day to day, she does, like, come back to herself a little bit, which was great. She's had some traumatic things happen to her, as you do when you're in the mafia, your life ain't easy, right? And anyway, this one is also a pretty big age gap. She is 18, 19 when this is starting, and he is 33, so there's a pretty big age gap. Also, if Giorgio is to cross the line with her, he could be ruining all the plans he's made up to this point. If he breaks trust with her brother by sleeping with her, it could be bad. But, the girl, it's called When She Tempts, so she's gonna get feisty with him. So anyway, I enjoyed this one. I didn't quite like it as much because the heroine was kind of dumb sometimes. Like, it has that thing where, like, she's dumb in the beginning and then she, like, smartens up a little bit. But then she does a dumb thing again anyway. So you're like, didn't you learn from this not to do it? But for plot reasons, she does it. You know how it is. You know how it goes. It's always irritating. But anyway, it works out. Anyway, of course. So yeah, this one I ended up giving 4.5 stars to, and this one had a 3.5 on the spice scale. There's definitely some spanking going on for her misbehaving, and she's definitely a brat, so I literally wrote that. This one has attempted essay, murder, and violence, so definitely know that. Next up, there's When She Falls. So this book was a enemies to lovers. This is also kind of a bodyguard for a little bit. But now one of our sisters of the heroine from the first book, she is now the next oldest, and she's in an arranged marriage with, or will be put into an arranged marriage with another boss. And her father is very abusive to her. So none of the other girls have been abused by the father. I mean, he's not a nice guy. We don't like him, but none of them have been abused like she is. And her mother controls her food and just makes her feel horrible about herself. So she's been, taught to, duty before anything else. And so when she's put into this arranged marriage, she's like, okay, I'm going to do it. All right. Now, because of some stuff that happened in some previous books, there are some connections that have been made. And so one of our mafia boss, his right-hand man, so what happens? There's the wedding for our first couple in this series, right? And so all of her family comes over there. This sister, Gemma, I should say her name, Gemma gets very ill, like so sick. She has food poisoning, she's throwing up, and her family's gonna make her go back to New York while she's throwing up. And her older sister, the one who just got married, is like, fuck no, you're not doing that. She doesn't care what her parents think at this point. They're the ones who married her to a psychopath. So she's like, no, that's not happening. She's going to stay here till she's better. And so the right-hand man of our mafia boss there, Raz is his name, he is going to stay with her till she's healthy because the other ones are going on a honeymoon. And then he will fly back to New York with her when she's healthy. And also, he's going to stay there for the weeks until her wedding to, basically spy, but, he's pretending he's there for other reasons. So, our heroine hates him. She does. She had overheard him say something. Before she really knew him, she overheard him say something that sounded like, well, we could just kill all of them. And it was a joke. It was a dark joke, but it is a mafia joke. And so she doesn't trust him at all. And also, like, this is a woman who can never share her feelings. She can never lash out, or she pays high consequences for it. So, like, Raz is the only person she feels like she can lash out at. That's what I really took from this book. She really does lash out at him sometimes, but I understand it because there's nobody else she can be the real her with or be beaten and starved for it. So I do understand why she gets so sharp with him, and he doesn't understand why she dislikes him so much. He thinks she's beautiful and smart and just, like, edgy, but now that he's, like, with her around her family, he sees how, like, dark it is for her here. So this is a slow burn forbidden romance between these two. She has another fiance, And there was a solution to this that won't cause war. And I kind of saw it coming because there is one more sister. Her name is Chloe. And that's going to be the 4th book, the one that is coming out in December. And I saw a solution coming and I was like, please let this be the solution. So based on who the 4th book is and who the couple is going to be, it is the solution that I was thinking of, but I won't say anything here. Maybe you can even guess it from what I've said. But I'm very much looking forward to that book. So Gemma and Raz, I really liked them. There were some very powerful scenes with them, and I just liked how they ended up. So this one I gave them 5 stars, and it was a 3.5 on the spice scale. I liked this one a lot. I liked it as much as the first one, and also for, again, the background plot that's going on as well. I really liked. Okay. Now that we got past them, so again, I highly recommend that series. Start with When She Unravels and binge through. There are also audiobooks for all of these. I did not listen to them. I was just binging the Kindle books, but there are audios for everything. Next, I read a new release, which is called Trickshot by Kayla Gross. I've seen this one being advertised. Kayla Gross is the one who also wrote Rein Me In, I believe. Yeah. So this one is just a spicy holiday novella, and it is a MMF romance. It has a pansexual hero and a bi hero, and then our heroine, she is supposed to be visiting her family for Christmas, and she gets snowed in, and she meets a guy at the bar who she thinks is a professional hockey player, and he's actually the twin of the hockey player. So his name is Leo. His brother's name is something else that I can't remember. And he just goes along with it because he does that sometimes to make people feel like they were with a celebrity. So a little bit crazy, but it happens to him all the time. Like being a twin of a celebrity would be difficult, I think. And I don't know, they just start talking and it goes really well and they have really good vibes, and he invites her back to his place since they can't fly anywhere. And he's like, how about you spend Christmas Eve with me and my partner? So he has a friend that he lives with that they have an open relationship. They are like together, but they have an open relationship, and they have shared people before, both men and women. And so Leo brings Riley home to his roommate Jace. And these three proceed to have a little tryst with each other. There is, of course, the secret that Leo is going by his brother's name, so that's going to come out at some point. But this was a kinky little fuck fest, and it was pretty hot. There was toys used, there is DP, there's edging, there's topping and switching, like the guys like switch who's in control. There was some light daddy kink, spanking, and a non-sex toy used as dildo, which was interesting. Oh, butt plugs too. Forgot about those. So lots of things used in a little novella, and it was fun. My trigger warning is, like, I don't love when people have sex as a hidden identity. So this book was a very light for the most part. There isn't a lot of dark stuff talked about, but for me, I do think it's not an informed consent when someone's hiding their identity, so I don't love that. But I didn't ding the novel for it because it's literally part of what gets this started. So I gave this 4 stars because for what it was supposed to do, it definitely did it. And I love my kinks, so I had fun with this one. When there isn't any other expectation except steam, I have a good time. So yeah, and it was like a 4.5 on the spice scale. All right, then we had a reread of Stolen Air. I needed to annotate this for one of my patrons, as well as I sold a few of my annotated books last Saturday, and this was one of them. So I needed to reread this one to annotate it. So not too much to say. This is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, book 2 in the Brutal Birthright series by Sophie Lark. I think we all know what this is about at this point. If you want to know more, I do have a video that's dedicated to Sophie Lark if you want more on that. But yeah, of course, always a good time with that one. Then I read Reckless Hearts by Jager Cole. This is book 6 in his Dark Heart series, and it is the final book in the Dark Heart series. So he has a new series starting in January that's going to be called Vicious Gods, and it is going to take place around the BDSM club Venom that we meet in, I think we first see it in book 2, because I think in Vicious Hearts, that's the club that Killian and his heroine meet at. Una? Her name is Una, yeah. And we see other people go there in other books too. In Sinful Hearts, I think they meet there. So yeah, definitely a place we've been. But that's what the new series will take place on. This one is about a Greek brother, Demos, I think is how we say his name. And he is the brother we know the least about. He has, you know, been out of the country a lot. We don't see him a ton. And he is kind of bordering on like a sociopath or a psychopath. I don't know, but he's something on there. And our heroine is Dahlia. And so Dahlia actually knows Demos, and we'll get into that in a second. But she's besties with two of the other girls in this. Who is it? I don't remember the names of the heroines. I'm sorry. But Callie. She's friends with Callie and with one of the other sisters too. They had like went to school together. They're in college together. And so they met that way. They do study groups together. So they know each other there. And she actually knows Demos because when they were in, I can't remember if it was like prep school or it was the first year of college. It was the first year of college when she was 18, 19. And they knew each other there briefly. She was only there for half a semester, and she left actually because of an incident that happened. And when she left, there was some stuff that goes on, and Demos actually said, if I ever see you again, I will destroy everything. I'll destroy everything. So, I mean, she hasn't seen him in all this time. And when she became friends with Callie and the other girl, she didn't know who she fully was and like how they were connected until she was already friends with her. And then she wasn't going to break her friendship because she doesn't have many friends at all. And so she knew it was always a risk that she would run into Demos. But also, I'll say this. She kind of wants to run into him. Like, I'm just going to say that. Like, she definitely kind of wanted to. Because if she didn't, she would have broken this friendship. If she was really scared, she would. So, yeah. So they meet actually at Callie's birthday, which we see in the last book. This is when she's in the fake relationship with Castle. They haven't, like, gotten together yet in this one. And Demos sees her. And he's like, oh, little girl, I told you if I saw you, I'd ruin you. And so he goes about doing that by buying up companies that used to belong to her mother. Her mother is in the middle of a messy divorce. They are wealthy people, but this soon-to-be ex-husband is trying to take things that belong to her mother. Her mother has had a pretty traumatic life, and she's a very strong woman. I guess she's the sister of a hero from a different book. I'm going to read that series next, but Dark Kingdom is what that one's called. Because now that we're going to start another series, I want to read his backlist a bit. Anyway, and so Demos starts buying up these companies, and he's going to start his own company. And she needs to do an internship with a business to like finish out her schooling, and he ends up getting her internship. So now he's her boss, and he also holds her future in his hands because he's been buying up these companies, and he is going to like force her to do whatever he wants they land on a year. She can make it through a year because he's like, no, I'm not giving you up after a few weeks or a month. Like, I'm keeping you for a long time. And with that, of course, he means you'll run all my little errands, get my coffee, or suck my cock during a meeting if I need you to. You're going to do all of it. So a bit of a like a repeat kind of going on of like Twisted Hearts, where there was kind of that like free reign scenario going on or something. But he is very like vicious with her. And very, like, degradation is a huge part of this. There's primal play. She is into this. And he knows that she's into this for reasons, which I won't tell you because it is, like, a reveal in the story. But he and her have lots and lots of kinky sex together in this one. Like, oodles of it. We'll get into that soon. But, yeah. So, this is one of those stories where they had a misunderstanding in their youth. And now it's kind of like a bully romance, okay? That's what this book felt like to me, right? They had a misunderstanding when they were in their first year of college together. Or he was on his last year, she was on her first year, whatever. And because something was misunderstood, like they had this connection back then, but it gets spoiled somehow. And once it gets spoiled, he hates her now, right? And we've seen this scenario before, so I'm not knocking it. It's tried and true, it gets used. And what he's doing to her now as they're adults is bullying, you know, like I have something over you and you're going to be my slave and do what I want, you know, like that blackmailing kind of bully thing. So it definitely feels like that scenario you've maybe seen in like some other dark new adult stuff, right? So yeah, and through that, of course, you know, he becomes more than just possessive and wanting to fuck her. He starts to, you know, feel things for her. He's sure he never will. All of these men in the series think they can never love anyone. We know how it goes. But he has always felt alienated from his family because of some stuff that happened to him when he was young. Their dad was such a shithead. He ruined things for them. So anyway, this was dark and twisty and bordering on an erotic. I would call this like an erotic mafia because again, this one had, I made a whole list, you guys, okay? This one had primal play, biting, breeding kink, CNC, spanking, and impact play, dirty talk, and degradation. So it had a lot. They go crazy. They like end every night with like a chase in his apartment where he'll turn off the lights and they run around until he catches her and fucks her, you know? She was also a virgin the first time they do, but she doesn't tell him that. So yeah. And then there is kind of a mystery that comes in at one point. So there's that for it. And yeah, we end off the series, and there's still one Greek brother who doesn't have a partner, so I assume we'll maybe see him in Vicious Gods. I don't know. But I mean, I'm fine with him like starting a new series from this. I don't really think there's much else to cover in the series. I don't know. That's just me saying. Whereas like, I feel like it'll be a good place to start a new series with someone from this series. You know, it's a good way to carry into the next one. So now, just a few issues I had with this one. There was so much sex in this. Now, I knew there would be because Jagger poos a lot in all of his, so I'm not like mad at it. But what is difficult for me is it was degradation to a level I don't like. So if you like degradation kink, if you like that, you're going to like this. You're going to like it. There's a lot. But the type of degradation that was used is calling her my good little whore, calling her a cum slut, calling her my cum hole. It was used excessively amount, okay? I don't love when people are called whore, maybe once or something, but every time they had sex, that was happening, and it was a lot for me. I'm just telling you, it was a lot for me. I also, I don't know. The scenario where they have the miscommunication, which I'm not completely against miscommunications, right? They do serve a purpose in stories. But the amount of the type of miscommunication that had to happen for him to hate her for 6 years is, I don't understand it, right? I didn't buy it. I didn't buy how the thing that he sees and misinterprets, that he hates her for 6 years because of it. Is it 6? I think it's 6 years, right? So I'm just putting it out there. That's my choice. In hindsight, I might give it a little less, but I don't know. It just felt like kind of a disappointing one to end the series on, because I never felt like a warm, fuzzy feeling for Demos the way that I have for, you know, the other heroes in the series. There was always a spot where I did. But, you know, these are two people who have matching kinks, who found each other, who have all the sex that they could want, and I love it. There are also words used like jam and slam and pound that there isn't a single sex scene these two had that wasn't him pounding the ever-loving shit out of her. And then the next day he'd be like, "Are you sore?" And she's like, "Just a little." And I'm like, anyway, we're letting it go. I gave this one 4 stars. And it was definitely a 5 on the spice scale for me. And yeah, a lot of people are loving this, so enjoy. I still think now when I can look at the series as a whole with all 6 books, I think Vicious Hearts is my favorite. And then that's followed by Deviant Hearts and Twisted Hearts. That's kind of where it sits for me. And yeah, I'm still very much looking forward to reading the backlist of Jagger. I have some downloaded, and hopefully before his next series starts, I don't know, it starts in January, maybe not quite then, but I do want to do a deep dive of Jagger Cole and have that to share with you guys. So we'll see. All right, just 2 more to go over real quick here. I reread Bound by Tiffany Roberts. I've been listening to the audios of these this year as they were released. So this is book 3 in the Spider's Mate trilogy, and I'm finished with my reread. I can't wait for the Vrix books to start coming out. I hope those are early next year that we get those. We'll see. And yeah, I love this couple. I love their growth through the series. I love the tribe that they create. I love the family that they build. And I just think that it was all crafted so perfectly, like honestly. And this is a monster series that is not all about the smut. It's not just all about Monster Peen. It is there if you want it because he does have it. But this was a like beautiful romance. It's built slowly and strong, and they're just one of my favorite couples. I love them. So obviously I highly recommend the Spider's Mate trilogy. Even if you think the spiders would be too weird for you, give it a try. There's been very few people, there are a couple, but there's been very few people that, you know, are like, oh, I don't like spiders. I don't like spiders. Are you kidding me? Ew. No. But there's very few people that I've read that when you read it can't get past that because of how good the characterization is of them. So that was obviously a 5-star, and it is a 2.5 on the spice scale. There is some trigger warnings in this last one for like alien pregnancy and pregnancy symptoms that are like pretty harsh. And it's also a risky pregnancy since it's a hybrid situation. So be prepared. Then the last book, which I finished, is coming out on Tuesday, and it is Love Redesigned by Lauren Asher. This was my 3rd try for this author, and I'm happy to say that I enjoyed this one quite a lot. This is my favorite I've read. I read the first 2 books in the Dreamland Billionaires, and neither of them worked for me. They didn't work for me at all. And those are both books that I've read for Patreon, so there's exclusive reviews for those over there. But I don't know. This one I wanted to try. I did because, I don't know. It just seemed like it's one I would get along with. So, and I did. I really enjoyed it. So this one is about Dahlia and Julian. It's funny that I had 2 Dahlias this month. That is not, or this week. That is not a popular name. But Julian and Dahlia they were childhood like friends to rivals kind of thing. And they both are from kind of like poorer families, I guess, but their mothers are best friends. And so that's kind of how they were always around each other, and their mothers always wanted to get them together. And then when they had this attraction between them, and when they were in college, they missed their chance. Julian's dad died, and he really pushed her away very strongly. And so they missed their chance then, and she actually ended up dating his ex-roommate because he left college when his dad died to take over the business and just left her high and dry. So she started dating his ex-roommate. And now, all these years later, she was engaged to be married to Oliver, is his name. And this book starts with, they have just broken up, and she goes back to her small town to take a break. Her and her ex did a TV show together, kind of like, you know, TLC stuff. That's been super popular right now. It's like a TLC home improvement show. That's kind of what it was like. And they're in between the seasons, but all the episodes where they were together like still have to air, so that's an awkward position to be in, right? And then Julian is there, and they end up through, I won't like explain every detail of this, but they end up both going in on this house that they're going to restore together. And so that's going to happen. And so, yeah. And then this is them, forced proximity, working together, still having this rivalry, bicker back and forth. They do pranks on each other. All this stuff happens. And now there is a chance that they could actually be together. And Julian has to decide if he's willing to risk it again. Because he was, you know, it was kind of his fault that they didn't have a chance. But he wasn't ready for a relationship then anyway. So, you know, it was probably good that he waited. But he now is done waiting. And there comes this point in this book where he just like clicks in and is like, I'm making this happen. And I loved it so much. So this is the type of book So not to spoil it, this is the type of book. There's a very slow buildup of them. It felt very real. There's a lot of stuff they have to talk through. They have to, number one, be willing to talk after they've had, this rivalry between them. They have a lot of baggage between them. But as that starts filtering out and their chemistry really comes through again, and then it kind of turns into that they're going to be like friends with benefits. And Julian, in his head, he's like, I'm going to use this friends with benefits to prove to her that we're perfect for each other. And I'm going to prove to her that she wants to be with me. And so that's the goal. Now for the heroine, she's still planning to go back to California when like she has opportunities to get her own show and to like start something new. And so for her, she puts an expiration date on their friends with benefits for the time when she's going to go back. And again, what Julian does to make sure he can keep her no matter what. Number one, this is why you need a billionaire boyfriend, so they can do stuff like that. And number two, he's just not missing out on her this time. And guys, I loved it so much. So anyway, like I said, this has a very slow like build up for them. And so I was really nervous what the third act might be, right? Because again, I've read Lauren Asher before. And in the two that I read, the third act conflict situations infuriated me, and they tended to like crash the book for me. That happened in both the ones I read. So I was just hanging on by my fingertips, and I was like, what's going to happen? Well, I'm not going to tell you what happens, but this one does not have a third act breakup. I will tell you that. It doesn't. And I loved it. I'll definitely be continuing the series. The next one is going to be about Julian's brother, Raph, who is a single dad. And I can't wait for that one. So I gave this one 4.5 stars, and it was 2.5 on the spice scale. This one has some gaslighting, some grief, mental health, anxiety and depression. Our heroine, we really see her going through some depression and stuff in this, and struggling with infertility. So all of that is spread out through here. I thought it was handled very well. Also, I don't know a lot about the culture of these two characters. It's not something I'm familiar with, but there's a lot of Spanish used throughout this, and there was some beautiful, just like family like traditions and things they had going in this that I thought were beautiful as well. So yeah, that is everything. The only downside to why it's 4.5 is that even though I was okay with how slow this burn was, this book was too long. It's over 500 pages. This is a complaint that comes up again and again. These books are too long. And so this book took me a long time to get through. It took over a week because I would read and read and nothing would move on my Kindle. And I'm like, come on, keep going. And then finally the other day I was like, we're finishing it. And I just plowed through it. But it got a little long, especially because it was a slow burn. It felt like it took a long time. But I still gave it 4.5, which I rounded up to a 5 for my reviews because I had a good time with it. It was a good time. So I am all done. That's all the books. We're over an hour, so there we go. I read 13 books. It was great. I have links to all of them down below if you want to purchase or pre-order any of them. If you use my link, it does help out the channel. If you would like to support me through my Patreon or my channel memberships, those are down below. It takes a lot of work to film these super long videos, so any support is welcome. Thank you so much for watching, my friends, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.